Move. Ready to roll, Carly?
So ready.
All right, Carly, what's going on?
Hey, just regular life, school and work, and nothing really has changed.
Really? What's
Yeah.
outside of school? What you have going on?
I've been working kind of part-time at a couple of different places, just like as I can work if I feel like I'm caught up on homework and stuff, and I've been trying to hang out with friends. Sometimes it's a little crazy. We're all pretty busy, so like I'll make plans with a friend, or like I'll say like, oh my gosh, we should hang out, like I miss you, and then it'll be like 3 weeks later and I'll realize like, oh, like we have not hung out yet. So like life gets a little bit crazy, it seems like.
Right, understood. How did your friends feel about that? Like you not having that time and just being available to hang out like you used to?
Yeah, I think they're understanding. Like they have some of the same things going on. I mean, like they don't say anything to me like, hey, you're never available or anything. They like when I say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that we haven't, like I'll look back at my text and be like, oh, that's from like a month ago. Like they when I say something about it, when I say like, oh, I'm so sorry about that, they're like, oh, well, we understand, like you're really busy. So I think they're understanding about it, at least from what they've said to me.
Right. What are some of the things that you guys usually do? Like, what are you mainly like more concerned about missing out on?
Oh, just catching up. Like, we used to kind of get together like every week and hang out. Nothing really specific, but now it seems like it has to be more of like a planned activity.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we're gonna go do this, or something like that, instead of just like hanging out.
That makes sense.
Maybe like it takes a little more effort now.
What about family? How does family feel about you being so busy?
They're okay with it. I think that's easier because you always know they're gonna be there, and you don't feel like you have to like maintain that relationship for it to be there. So that one's a little easier. And I live really close to my mom and my dad and my brother, so it's easier to see them. But my sister, she lives kind of far away. She lives like 3 hours away, so it's a little bit more difficult. But I think with like social media and stuff, like sometimes you can feel more distant to somebody with social media, but with my sister, I feel like it brings us closer because she can share videos and stuff of her daughter, of my niece, and like that's changed. Like whenever I used to talk to my sister and hang out with my sister, it was just us, and now that she has a baby, it's really more about my niece. So that relationship has changed a little bit, but I think it's like both of us have changed, because like now when I want to see her, like I do want to see her, but I also just really want to see my niece.
Right. And where are you working at again? No.
Where am I working?
Yeah.
I'm working at a rock climbing gym, and then I'm working. Sometimes I'll sub at schools for their special ed paras if I have a day free.
Right. How does that kind of go hand in hand with like what you're trying to do with school? Are you doing it just because just want to have a job, or are you kind of blending that with some experience for what you're trying to do later?
Yeah, well, like the rock climbing one is not really. That's just a hobby, and it kind of just fell into a job because they needed people.
Yeah.
But and it kind of actually worked out because now I get a free membership there, so I'm saving a little bit of money every month on that. But my job as a special ed para is really close to what I'd like to do. That's what I'm going to school for. I'm going to school for art therapy, but and mental health counseling. But I really would like to go back into a school and be a mental health practitioner or something like that, or a counselor. But I wanted to do the art therapy program because I already have a art degree. So I wanted to kind of like, I didn't want to waste my undergrad degree.
Yeah.
I wanted to blend it with my new degree. So yeah, just like continuing that and using art in a different way. I wanted to do that. And I like working with kids. They seem easier than adults.
It can be. I can tell you that firsthand. It's a lot easier working with kids. Way easier. So give me a little bit more about school. What's more stressful about school?
Yeah, well, it's like I just finished sort of a class. Like we're coming to the end. It's like all of these projects are due and we're supposed to spend, so we get 2 weeks after the class ends to do projects, and we're supposed to spend like 40 hours, like a full job on these projects. So like they're a big deal, and like before you can finish them, you start a new class. Like I started my new class a couple days ago, and so I'm like finishing up project of one class, and I'm already starting another class, and I already have like homework in that class. So it's like it's hard to keep them straight and like remember everything you have to do, and like like remember the old stuff that you learned while learning new stuff.
I think that's the hardest part too, like the catch-up game, right?
Yeah.
Like when you go into school and your mindset is, the name of the game is to stay ahead of the game, right? So you want to stay ahead on things, but then once life gets in the way, you start working, time gets cut, it's hard to stay on track with that stuff. So I don't know, how much longer do you have left before you're done?
In school, well, I just started, what is this? I think this is my 3rd term. So, and then usually the program takes people like 2 years-ish to do. So, probably got 1.5 years left-ish.
But obviously I can check that stuff out if I wanted to on my own. But,
yeah.
So what part of school do you enjoy the most?
Well, the classes are, like, the in-person classes are actually really, like, they're always interesting. They're, like, 3 hours long, but they never seem that long when I'm there, because the professors are really, like, they are very knowledgeable, and they make the topics pretty interesting. And, like, the insight that other students bring is really refreshing because, like, I mean, I only have, like, one point of view, but so like when we talk about like readings and stuff and like talk about the information, I will get like my own understanding of it, and then someone will say something, I'll be like, oh, I never thought about that. So like the classes themselves are super interesting and really like not hard to be in and be a part of. It's just like the outside of class stuff, like the readings and the projects are harder because you're on your own. And you're not bouncing ideas off of anyone else. You don't have, you don't have someone telling you you're on the right or wrong track.
Right. So art therapy, like, what is obviously your ultimate goal is you're trying to blend the two together, right? Because art is your passion, correct? Like that's your first love, right?
Yeah.
And then long term, like, what do you think you want to do with the long term? Like outside of like being with, working as a paraprofessional, like in the school, right? And blending those two worlds together, special education, art. Is there like anything long term that you want to add to that, or is that like the ultimate goal for it?
Maybe someday I'd like to work in a hospital with like people with like brain injuries and stuff, and bringing art therapy into that. I think that would be really interesting. But like lifestyle wise, I would really like to work in a school because I love to travel, and like in the summer, I'm usually like traveling and doing other things. So I really appreciate having the summers off. So like that's a lot of the appeal of working in a school. Like I really like the way that you can interact with kids in a school. But like the summers off is definitely a perk.
Right. So like you mentioned, like just being so busy, not a lot of time with family, not a lot of time with friends, right?
Yeah.
What are you doing right now for self-care? Like when you do get the little bit of time that you have, like I should ask you, are you taking time for self-care? And if you are, what are you doing for self-care?
Well, this last month I haven't really had time to do any self-care
Mm-hmm.
because I was doing school and work, and then I was also getting ready for an art show. So like every little bit of time that I had to myself was actually like getting ready for the show. Which like sounds fun, but when you, well, some people like thrive under deadlines and stuff, but for me, when I paint and when I create art, it's so like hit or miss. Like I could have a really good day and love what I'm making and like really appreciate that time, but then other days I'll come into the studio and I will just like hit brick walls left and right. So like having a deadline in that context really sucks because like I can't force myself to paint because like the end product is just gonna be, I'm not gonna be proud of it. So that was really hard lately, or like last month. But now that I'm done with that, I'm like at a point where I'm packing it all up. So I'm like done painting. I'm not gonna touch them until after the show. I'll probably like fix some things. But when I do have time for self-care, I usually I do a lot of yoga. Like I have a membership at a yoga studio, so I go do classes, and I actually got a massage the other day. I forgot that I had a gift certificate for a massage. It's like 2 years old, and I was afraid they weren't going to take it, but they did. So I went and got a massage. That's kind of rare, but mostly yoga and like rock climbing, things like that for self-care.
Yoga, is it heated yoga or no?
Yeah, some of it is. Yeah, some of it's hot yoga, and then some of it's just like regular. I mean, like the regular yoga, like there's still a lot of people in the class, so our body heat, you know, like what are we, like 98 degrees? So it'll like, the temperature rises.
That heated yoga is no joke. I did it.
It's intense.
I think one time, maybe twice. And you get so focused on like the breathing part, but then you forget about the actual stretching part. Then you try to focus on the stretching, then you're not breathing. And that heat just, mentally, it just is really draining.
Yeah, it can be a little exhausting, especially if you're thinking about the heat the whole time. But I think I've gotten to the point where like I don't really think about the heat as much until like I've sweat so much that my hands are slipping on my mat. But especially in the wintertime, it's really nice. Like I look forward to the hot classes in the wintertime because I don't have very great body circulation. Like my blood doesn't circulate super well, so my hands and my feet are always cold, and like they never seem to warm up. So in the wintertime, when I go to hot yoga, it feels like, okay, my body has finally warmed up and I've finally like evened out here a little bit. Like really nice.
So tell me more about the art show. Like how long is this? Like is this your first one, or you normally do a lot of art shows?
No, this is my first like solo exhibition. It'll be a gallery that's just my work, and I haven't done that ever. So that's new, and I didn't necessarily really know what I was getting into when I said that I would do it, and it's when I want to exhibit my works, but I don't want to talk about them. Like I don't really, I don't want to like force people to see what I see. So when they asked me to do it, they were like, oh yeah, and you'll have to give an artist talk. I was like, oh God, no, like I don't want to do that. That's not something I want to do. But to fulfill a contract, you know, you got to do some things that you maybe don't want to do. So I'm not looking forward to some of it, but like I am looking forward to having that experience of exhibiting my work. Yeah.
I think that can be a good good area of growth for you too, right? Just like that explanation, because like with art being such a creative thing, right? And you know, your mind, the way your mind is like working, your creativity of your mind, somebody else might not see the vision in which you see it. So they might have like their own like perspective of like what it is, and
Mm-hmm.
so they might see it for that, and maybe they don't appreciate it because of the way that they're viewing it. But when
Mm-hmm.
they hear your description of like exactly where you're taking it, where your mind went, and what it represents, it might make them look at your art in a whole different light, right? So I think in
Yeah.
that regard, like explanation of itself, I think is going to take you a long way. Just because
Yeah.
some people have their own interpretation of what art means. I remember I've seen some paintings, like, and I'm like, okay, it's like playing what's that game? What's that game? Is it charades or one of those games where you do the drawing
Or the
games?
Pictionary? Oh,
Yeah,
where you
the
draw?
Pictionary things, and like, so you draw something and people are like, they get a chance to explain themselves, like, oh, that it looks like that, like that's what they think it
Yeah.
is, right? So I think it'd be good. I think that the explanation part like might be a good thing for you, where it helps people really appreciate your art even more. Obviously, you don't want them to see it the way you see it, but then there's another point that's like, yeah, I kind of do. Like, I want them to see
Mm-hmm.
my creative mind and where I was taking it. So, yeah. But I can see how you feel though about that. Just having to sit there and explain it, and yeah. So is that a thing
Yeah.
that you
Well,
normally
and
don't?
like, yeah, I guess it's kind of like hypocritical because when I learn like an inside thing about somebody else's artwork and it
Mm-hmm.
explains it better for me, like I love that. So it's kind of hypocritical of me to be like, I don't want to do it. I don't
Right.
want to tell people stuff. But yeah.
That's understood. I mean, that can just be a new focus area for you. Like, as you improve, as you keep getting better doing your art, maybe that's an area where you're like down the line, like, all right, I want to just try to get more comfortable in that, and because what I don't know a lot about art, but I know people who do art, like, people take pride in their work because
Mm-hmm.
it's such a creative thing, right? So I know you take pride in what you do. So with that being said, like, yeah, tell them what it is. Tell them they should know. They deserve to know, and then you deserve to let them know, like, yeah, this is how my mind works, right? That's a
Yeah.
good thing.
Yeah.
So are you normally like that with other things, like as far as like speaking? I don't want to say speaking in front of people, but is it just you just don't feel like speaking, or is it more of a like, I don't want to say like an overwhelming anxiety type thing, or like, is it more of that?
Like I can individually like talk to people just fine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big oversharer. Like
Yeah.
I tend to not say things about myself very much to people, especially if I don't know them very well. But like when I have to talk in front of a crowd, it is,
Mm-hmm.
since I do it so rarely now,
Mm-hmm.
it is more jarring. Like when I had to give a toast at my sister's wedding, I don't remember what I said. I blacked out. I have no idea what I said. So like I think it's because it's so rare now that I speak in public to a lot of people that like I don't remember how to do it
Right.
or like how to calm myself.
Makes sense. Yeah. Practice. Just like anything else, right?
That's the thing.
Practice. And it's so funny because we've gotten so much into technology now, right? And I think now, like, where our minds are trained not to do it, right? Just because of it's so much easier to send a text, right? It's so much easier to send a snap or whatever. Like, so we go all these different outlets and we don't have that individual conversation. So, yeah, it's just a growth area, right? I think it's an area that you can add to everything. I want to go back just to the school portion of it. I don't want to get too far off of that and forget about it, but just the focus area of just how to handle everything you have going on from school, work, getting everything done around that. And what do you think are some things that you can do moving forward as far as just prioritizing everything that you have going on?
I mean, I guess I can look at like when things are actually due and like prioritize it like that and be like, okay, well, first I have to tackle this thing because it's due first.
Mm-hmm.
Like work that way instead of like, oh, this is my current class, I have to focus on that because the deadline for the class that I'm done with is first.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I have to do readings to prep for my next class. but I still have to do this project. So like prioritizing what's due first, and like not looking at the whole picture and just looking at one thing first, like individually. Because then if I look at the whole picture and like all of the things I have to do, I get too overwhelmed.
Yep.
So just taking it like one thing at a time probably would be better.
Do you use a planner? Do you use your phone? Like, what do you use for planning? I know sometimes I like to use, sometimes I like to write stuff down, but some other things like using my phone to store things on my calendar is a lot easier. Because I spend so much time on my phone, I figure why not use it in that regard because I'm constantly on it too. So, what do you use?
Yeah, I usually write it down because I've always remembered things better if I hear it and then I read it, or like hear it, read it, and then write it down, like the 3 different
read it down,
methods. If I put it in my phone, I will forget about it, because there's really only a couple places that I go on my phone. Like I go to messages and Instagram. That's like it. And but if I write it down, I usually remember it. So I have my calendar, and I'll put like due dates on there. And then I'll have like in my school stuff, I'll have more of like a list of what I need to do. Because if I write too many things in my calendar, if I see on a day that there's like more than 2 things, I get so overwhelmed and I like don't want to do anything. Like I'll just shut down, not do anything. So I really limit myself on my calendar to only writing down like bullet points.
I mean, so it sounds like you got a nice little strategy going.
Hopefully it works.
I mean,
I guess we'll see come the end of this escapade.
Yeah, I think that works. And then I think it's also important to keep in mind like what's important for now, what's important like soon, and then what's important later. Right? There are things that we want to get done like in the moment, but we don't necessarily need to get done in the moment too. So it's like, okay, what's for now? What can I do, a little bit sooner, and then what can I like really wait off until later? Because that's what happens like when those new classes start, right? Like typically when a new class starts, sometimes you don't get work right away, but sometimes you do. So you kind of like prioritizing, like, okay, I need to get this work done from this last class before I get started with the new one. So that's more of like the now, and then the stuff that you need to get done soon is the stuff that's coming up. And then that way the stuff that's creeping up on you, you don't really have to focus on it too much. So it doesn't really overwhelm you, because sometimes it's like, oh, I got this coming up that's due, but it's not there yet, so you don't want to really overwhelm yourself with that stuff until you take care of the previous things and the stuff you have current. So, I mean, you seem to have the right mindset for it. I think now is just practicing, just keeping your self-care and not overwhelming yourself. And that does take time.
Yeah. You have to definitely work at that. It's not easy to remember that.
That's life. That is life. It's revolving doors. So it's never, it's a big cycle, right? As long as we're keeping ourselves busy, that overwhelming feeling is pretty natural. So, just keep taking it one step at a time and remember what's most important, and that is self-care, right? So make sure in the midst of all that you have in self-care, because that does help with the overwhelming feeling and the anxieties about things. So keep that self-care going, and one task at a time.
Yeah.
All right, is there any question or anything that you have for me? Anything that you need help with?
Not right now, I don't think. I think I feel pretty good about the next few days.
There we go. All right, well, we will be meeting again soon. So until then, good luck at the art show.
Thank you.
Don't talk to you, and we'll talk soon. All right.